Hey guys,
Hey, what's up?
hi, how you guys doing? Happy Tuesday. We're all
Same
here
to
for
you.
credit in a class that she's not here for. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was like a Blackboard meetup, but I'm pretty sure it's here.
Yeah, I just now checked into Blackboard and there's literally nobody. But whatever. Maybe she's doing 440 instead of 4:30 this time.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Mute. Hey, hello everybody. I can
Hello.
see my Hi guys, I can see my best students.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Hungry.
It's only 4:30,
I
Jasmine.
know, but I've only eaten like a couple hours ago. I eat late breakfast. Once I'm done with class at 10, I go back to sleep to catch up on sleep that I didn't get.
So
That's me. That's me.
is your breakfast at 2 p.m.?
Yeah, like 1 p.m. basically.
Actually, it's absolutely fine. Whoever says that breakfast is the main meal of the day are lying. We have research.
It'd be different if I was going to campus at 8 o'clock in the morning than being home.
Mm,
Going to school, then of course I need to eat something.
I
But
see. What about the rest of you guys? Seaver, Vanessa, Rita, do you guys eat breakfast?
I do, but it's like a brunch, so at 1 o'clock, same as Jasmine.
What about you, Seaver? You must be eating like nonstop.
Yeah, I've always been an early riser. My mom always said out of my three siblings and I, or my two other siblings, that I've always was the one to kind of ask to go to bed at like 6 p.m. as a kid. I never really I liked going to bed early and waking up early. So um, I don't eat much throughout the day, but I do enjoy a good breakfast.
Thank you. Hey, Jeremiah, what about your breakfast habits? Do you eat breakfast at all?
Breakfast makes me throw up in the morning.
Oh, really? Oh, God.
Anytime I eat in the morning, I'm throwing up.
Wow. Why would that be the case?
I'm on SSRIs, so they make me kind of feel like weak.
Oh, I see. It's the reaction to the medication. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Victoria, what about you? Do you eat breakfast?
Hi, Professor. Yes, I need to eat because I have a problem with my stomach, but I'm not enjoying this time.
Oh, I see.
I just need to eat, so.
Oh, oh well.
But you come used to this, so it's okay.
Yeah, we're getting used to everything. I mean, it's amazing how resilient people are. I mean, throw this online Zoom learning on us forever, and we survive.
We survivors, so.
Yeah, you don't have a choice, really. I mean, perhaps you know about those massive online open courses, MOOCs, MOOCs, that came right about 10 years ago, came around. So people were so excited. Look at this. You can take courses with the best faculty in the world from Princeton and Yale and Harvard. So they would open them, and that sometimes thousands of people would sign up. But guess what? Only 5% would ever graduate. That's just the nature of who we are. That's And now we all are in MOOCs. Who knew?
I hope you all graduate.
Well, you all will. Come on. Even if it continues for another semester, as you know, the vaccines are being pushed right and left. So the time will come when we will all get it and then meet together in the classroom. You may be graduated by then. I don't know. All right, we're doing good. Let's start with what we have to do. No, that's the one. Okay. Go on, open up. All right. Thank you guys for joining me. As always, today is our optional class of getting together.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
I show up because, of course, this is a class, but if we don't show up on Tuesdays, we have to watch the lecture on Zoom.
You don't have to. It will be available to you. Remember,
this is like an extra help, right?
That's right. It's also
Okay,
a chance for you to ask me questions because it's going to be a smaller, fewer people. We know the class is full, so it's 35. Here, it's a chance for you to, I do have things that I want to talk about, but I don't have to. So if you have questions that are more important, I'm more than happy to go with the flow. And then the lecture is available to you. Usually it takes me a day because I have to go through Zoom, YouTube, and all of that. So tomorrow it will be available. But again, it's not required. If you don't want to, if you don't have time, let's put it this way, you'll be okay. Because look at your scores for what is it? Quiz 1, which was due yesterday. Excellent scores. You guys have done quite well, which means that I will make your next quiz a little more difficult.
No.
Oh, yes. That's
Not
how
no. Professor.
Guys, this is no bueno.
I'm just kidding. No, well, you need to be challenged. If it's too easy, then it's not fun. But it's going to be fair.
Oh my god. All right.
It's
Fine.
gonna.
We signed up for this.
That's right. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Actually, let me stop sharing for a second because what I want to do is to say what I have. Come on. Why is it doing it to me again? Control, delete. Give me a second. I'm gonna check on the city training, and that I'm concerned with for some people still a problem. Okay, Microsoft Desk. Okay, so here is what I have. Okay, so there are a few people who either did not take city or did not send me the page that has the score. Now, the way to check it is to look at your grades in Blackboard. I haven't done grading of the activities for this past week, week 2, which I will tomorrow. So but the city scores are all in. If you don't see your score, that means you did not either post it on the Google Docs the way I asked, or you did not send it to me, you did not convey to me the score. And that is going to be a problem on Thursday, because if you still don't have the city training, then unfortunately you may have to be reassigned to a group on its own, or maybe not even be able to continue with the class until you're done. So please check your score for city training. And if there is no score, you're in trouble. That is, you should either talk to me or resend your city training back to me. All right, chats. Let's see before I go back. The summary will be in forum. Yes, this is, so week 3 activities are open until Monday the 21st. So anything that you will be doing for week 3 goes into the forum 3, September 15. It should say 15 through 21st. I'm just using the class dates. Okay, now we can go back to, and let's start the show. Okay, can you guys see the slides? Just checking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, all right, like I said, chapter 2 was easy, as I can see by your grades. Fantastic. Our next quiz will be on chapter 5, and that's going to be 2 weeks from now. So chapter 5 is measurements and variables, stuff like that. All right, so the first thing that we will start with is our flow chart. If you have it, you should pull it out, and in general, you should have it with you every week, because we're going to go through steps in that flow chart. The way our class progresses, it's all depicted in here. So we started with having an idea as our main concept from which everything originates. And we talked about 3 ways of getting this idea underway, which is what you will have to do for assignment 1 and then for assignment 2. And the 2 of them are really easy. It's library research, checking what we have published in a particular area, and maybe listening to people who have done past research, blogs and conferences and news, science reports and stuff like that. And that's these 2 boxes to the left from the idea. And our final one was empirical research, and that's what we will be engaging in, and that's what, so it's the recent stuff. And today we will talk about 3 sort of alternative approaches to getting ideas and conducting a study. And these alternative approaches are your person. Yes, Chidima.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Blackboard and I was just confused about the assignment 1. Like, it says 1 report per group. So, like, how are we supposed to all write the same paper together?
Well, usually you use Google Docs.
So, like, the 1 paper, so all of us can edit?
Yeah. A Google Doc allows you to write and edit in real time. Now, the issue is, of course, that Google Doc may not give you full flexibility in terms of APA formatting. So one of you should take the leadership of the group and then have it all formatted in Word and perhaps then converted to PDF with everybody's input. But the actual writing is much easier when you do it in a collaborative tool. That's why I suggested that you guys create not only individual Google Docs, it's in the syllabus, but also a group Google Doc. And we can start with that on Thursday. So what you need to do, you need to get, let's see who you are with. You're with Tyrell and Edgar. I don't know if any of them is on now. Let's see. No, but they will be on Thursday, so you can talk to them and decide which of you will take the lead on the assignment in terms of coordinating everybody. The other possibility, Chijime, is to write different components, and that's also a possibility, and then bring them all together in one document. And then the leader of the group takes the responsibility of reading through, editing, and submitting.
Like, so we have to decide on one topic, and then can we do like one person per page or so?
It's up to you how you're gonna divide your lab report. Just remember that when different people write different pages of the same document, it's very visible. So it still does not relieve you of an obligation to read the final text and make it compatible. Otherwise, it's going to be like a person with three heads. And that's not going to be a good grade because you can see that the quality of the text is very different. So there is always somebody who will need to make sure that everything is coordinated.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome. So let's move on to what we will do. We'll look at the topics that you guys are already familiar with, the research versus your personal experience. The research versus your personal intuition. I mean, what do we do with authorities, which of course we have plenty. And finally, if we have time, we'll talk more about finding and talking about research, which is the second part of your assignment one. Is assignment one, part one is the media representation. Then the second part is the original research article that you will need to be able to read and summarize and compare with the media. So you have to know how to read research anyway. All right, so let's start with the very first component, that is research versus your personal experience. And it's not just your personal experience, of course, it's the experience of people around you, your family, your friends, your co-workers, whoever is a part of your circle. And the textbook clearly delineates the problems that we have with the experience. The issue is that we don't really believe any of that. We think that we know how to do it right. So let's just go through some of the examples that will help us to understand why we need to be educated in how to, need to be trained in how to conduct scientific research. That is, how to move from being the consumer of research into being a producer of research. And by the time you guys are done with us, go through our curriculum, which is designed to help you to transition from from consumers to producers, you should be able to do so, especially for those of you who will consider doing an honors thesis in one of our labs. And that should be a goal for those of you who think about any kind of a continuation of the education, whether it's a professional school, mental health counseling, that's the program we have, or any other master's program. You need to be able to actually produce research. So these are the three reasons why experience is not a substitute for research. And we'll start with the first one, which is a lack of a comparison group. But there's also things like confounds. These are the additional explanations that you did not predict, but nonetheless, they contributed to the results. Therefore, you are not sure whether your results are due to the variables you manipulated or to these confounding variables. And of course, there are other ways to see why doing research is so much better than relying on personal experience. This is the example from the textbook. I wouldn't say this is the best example in the world, but it does the job by telling us why people sometimes go for something that doesn't make sense later on. I would say that the more contemporary example would be mastectomy, that is the breast removal in case of breast cancer. And in the early 1990s, that was the actual preferred treatment for cancer, because the idea behind cancer was that it affects a lot of tissue around the affected area itself. So the best way to get rid of cancer and to stop it from spreading is to remove as much stuff from the body as possible. And that was actually the opinion of the surgeons who were advocating this very aggressive approach to women's health in the 1990s. Now, so that is very sort of parallel to this bloodletting example from the textbook. So if people believe that you can save more lives by doing mastectomies, then that should be the first line of treatment of the disease. Well, until you start looking at the numbers, it turns out that it's not the case. And in this case, there is this little 3-table story that you should look at, and we will do a little exercise in a minute that should help you understand why just your personal experience, whether you're a surgeon or just a regular Joe, should not be something for you to make decisions of this magnitude. Like, should you, in those days, should you have your blood let, or should you have very radical aggressive surgery? My example for you is the Scamper's example. So obviously it's a lecture, so you don't really have to do anything, but I would like you to try, because it's the only way to learn how to do these things. So I'm going to show you a little story, and I'm asking you just to use a piece of paper. If you have a notebook next to you, hopefully, we can try to go through this example. So here is a story that's also mentioned in the textbook about a counselor in the summer camp that has very rambunctious kids, and he or she doesn't have any way to calm them down, so she thinks it's because they have lots of sugar in their diet. Now, that's a very common belief in the American public, especially parents and teachers, that sugar makes kids antsy. So now this counselor decides to modify the children's diet and to remove as much sugar from their diet as possible. And once she has done so, she has noticed that the kids are more cooperative. So this is what I would like you to do. Let's imagine that we have 30 children. Let's draw a table that looks like this. So I'm going to give you a minute. This is called a contingency table, a 2x2, that allows us to see how our personal experience is often in the way of scientific thinking. So the scientific thinking here is that if we reduce sugar in children's diets, they will become more cooperative. So that's this cell. So I'm going to get my annotation tool going. It's this cell. So imagine we have to have numbers in these 4 cells, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that add up to 30. So one possible outcome would be possible theoretically, would be that all 30 children, of course, we reduced the sugar in their diets, all 30 of them became much more cooperative. Yay, our manipulation worked. Unfortunately, that's not the case under normal circumstances, right? We actually have to distribute these 30 children in these cells, and this will give us an idea of how our study is going. So why don't you guys take a minute or whatever and write 4 numbers in these 4 cells. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4, in such a way that the total number is 30, and we'll see whether your numbers support or disconfirm the hypothesis that reducing sugar in children's diet makes them better behaved. And you can see, you can type in your numbers in the chat. Just say 1 dash whatever, 2 dash whatever, 3 dash whatever, 4 dash whatever. But they all have to add up to 30. Well, Jeremiah, all 4 numbers have to add up to 30. That's the only restriction for now. All right, so let's see. Louis says 15. Let's play with Louis. The numbers from Louis: 15, 2, 3. I'm gonna just get rid of this. 10, and this is 3. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at writing with a mouse. All right, do we have 30 now? Let's see, 15 plus 10, 25, yes, we have 30, excellent. So, okay, really gives us 10, 5, 5, 10, So if we take Louis's numbers, we will say, well, out of 25 children, that's the 15 plus 10. 15 improved. So what's the percentage of improvement? 15 out of 25. It's whatever. 40 maybe. Okay, so about 40% of kids improved. Their behavior got better when they started eating less sugar. And then out of 5 kids in the change diet, 2 out of 3, that's 60%, well, 66%, right? Improved without any change in their diet, right? Okay, so that obviously is something that we have to think about. So 40 kids improved and 60, well, 40%.
Professor, sorry, wouldn't that be 2 out of 5?
I'm sorry, did I say, yeah, did I say 2 out of 3?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm wrong. 2 out of 5, you're right. So that's, what does it give us? 2 out of 5. That's 30%, right? Or 33, I don't know. Something like that. You're right, I'm not summing things up. Is it 40%?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Meaning even worse, right? So let's say it's 40%. So now what does it do to our hypothesis that reduced sugar improves kids' behavior? So 15, 40% improved with reduced sugar. 2 improved in no change diet. So small changes in numbers will do wonders, good or bad wonders to our hypotheses. So the problem with the intuition, I'm sorry, with the experience is that we often look only at this one cell, the cell where we expect to see change, this one. And we are not looking at the other 3. Now, a reader's numbers are interesting. So here we have 10. Here we have 5. Here we have 5 again. And here we have 10. Without even doing any percentages, we can see that 10 and 10, no change in diet, and they're not cooperative. Change in diet, they are cooperative, and these numbers are the same. Again, that's not supporting our hypothesis. But if we are thinking about the 10 kids that gave us the hardest time, we suddenly would say, hey, listen, it looks like having less sugar calms kids down. So that's the problem number 1 that is discussed in the textbook, and hopefully something that will become easier for you as you think about as going through contingency tables like this. All right, so we can skip that now. We will do this next time on Thursday. I need to get rid of this annotation. The example that is given to you in the textbook has to do with Bushman's study. Actually, it's a series of studies that he has conducted about catharsis. And here, again, this is the idea of how the hypothesis would work based on your experience. Again, the textbook is very clear about it. Many people think that taking your anger out is a good thing. It's cathartic. It allows you to put all the anger behind you. Now, you read about the study, I hope, and actually it is available to you on the Blackboard if you're interested. These are the unusual numbers. So he had 600 participants. That's a big study. And he created conditions, yeah, a little bit artificial, where participants had to write an essay, which was then criticized by a Confederate. A Confederate is a member of the experimental team. And then this supposedly would create a situation. Why are you doing this? Sorry. The annotation is. Would create the anger in the participants, and then Bushman divided these 600 people, students, into 3 groups of 200 each. One group was just asked to sit quietly. That is, you may be angry, but you're just sitting there doing nothing. The other 200 people, students, were provided with a punching bag, and they could just punch the bag. They were not told anything about the Confederate, I think, whose name was Steve or something like that. And the last group is the catharsis group that was supposed to imagine Steve's face as they were punching the bag. And they measured what these people then did to Steve in a game environment where they could actually blast his ears with a very loud noise, which is unpleasant. So they measured this. They call it aggression, right, to the Confederate. And it turns out that people who were just sitting quietly, being, angry, whatever, they were the least likely to be aggressive toward the Confederate. And the people who supposedly were cathartic. That is, they used the punching bag with the Steve's face that they imagined on it were the worst in terms of blasting him with the highest noise. So that's all the mass media sites that may suggest that you should perhaps do something about your anger like this are kind of wrong. I don't know if you have heard about those. I think they're called rage rooms. Does anybody know what a rage room is?
Yes, I know about that.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's like a room where you break things, like you pay for it. For example, you pay $45 and then they give you stuff and you have to, like you can take your anger out and you break.
Fantastic. Yes, perfect. And actually, some of them cost quite a lot of money. So, right, imagine now a situation where you feel angry and you think, okay, maybe I should go to a rage room and just smash everything in sight. You got to think about Bushman's studies. It's just one of many that shows that that's going to be a waste of your money. A much better situation would be for you to kind of sit down and think quietly about the situation and maybe come up with some ways of, um, relaxing, getting rid of the anger, like, I don't know, anger management. But rage rooms with all the money that they cost are worth not much. So that's, again, a very classical example of what experience can do to us. It can make us waste money. However, here is the little caveat on the research stuff, that it's actually not necessarily 100% perfect. That is, like we talked about the campers, one potentially could think of a situation where every single child improved after, and everybody was in that group, improved out of that, on that diet. But the research doesn't work this way. All right, I need to stop for a second because I don't like the way the slides are going. Now that is an issue. All right, take a little 1-minute break while I'm changing the slides.
Professor?
Go ahead, Chidima.
Oh yeah, I have another question.
Go ahead.
Like, is that like, what if I put in a lot of effort in my writing, but then my other group members don't, and then since it's all mixed together, like, what if I want to do really well, like get an A, but then the other groups, like the other members of the group writing isn't as good?
Okay, well, there are several solutions to that. I'm sure you can even come up with one yourself.
Like, can I put like my name under whatever I wrote?
Okay, that's one possibility. But remember, Chidima, that's, a good question for you to think about. Is there a reason why, it's not just this class, I assume, but many other classes that you're taking use group work? Is there a reason for that, or is it just to make your life more difficult?
Like, I don't know how to like have a group work not in person, and then like,
Well, like I said, you can use Google Docs. You can get together on Google Hangouts or on Facebook. There are plenty of ways. In fact, in my personal experience, maybe I'm wrong, in the previous iterations of the class, it was very hard for people to get together physically. Most of the groups worked remotely anyway, even in the days when we could meet in class. Of course, they still had the chance to chat with each other in class, but it doesn't, under undermine the fact that most of the work was done online. So one of the reasons why we ask and want you to do work together is because you help each other. I mean, one head is much better than, three heads are much better than one. And also, just think about it in the real world, in any kind of circumstances. Nothing is done individually anymore. I mean, it's unusual. If you start looking at research articles, which you will continue doing in this class and other classes, you won't find any articles written by single people. It's impossible these days. We don't have enough expertise to write like this. So let's say you think that your partner is not pulling his or her side of the deal, is to help, to suggest what can be done to improve. These are not huge, or at least assignment number one is not a long piece. It's 5-6 pages. You can certainly write it together. A lot of my articles with my team members actually are written this way, physically. I mean, we are remote in different places in the world even, and we still write together. So yes, it requires you to work in a group. So then you can educate your partners, make sure that they do a better job. You can become the leader and help your assignment one to be the best it can be.
Okay.
All right, good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so let's move on to the second component, research versus intuition. We often have intuitions about things, right? But we don't think about the fact that our judgments, our intuitions can actually have lots of biases, and that's what the second part is all about. It's about biases and our intuitions, and therefore we can make sort of mistaken conclusions between the cause and effect if that's the case. So I'm going to try to illustrate that in a second with using this example of crowd behavior. Let's see
I'm
what you
sorry,
think.
can you please go back real quick so I could just take
Sure.
a picture of the slide?
Okay. Let's see. Go back. Here we go.
Thank you.
Remember, Jasmine, it's all going to be posted for you tomorrow, so you don't have to.
Yeah, but just to get the notes now instead of tomorrow. Just
Oh,
push
good.
it out the way and make sure it's all here.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's think about this crowd behavior. I'm going to give you an example, and then hopefully it will work. I'll show you a very short clip. So in 1903 in Chicago, there was this disastrous fire. Of course, the fires that we have in California now are also disastrous. But in this particular one, 602 people died. Now, for 1903, that's a huge number of people. Now, the question is, what is the intuitive explanation for this? I mean, why did all these people die? So let's now watch the clip and then come back to this question. I hope it works. I tried. All right, let's see.
All hell broke loose. The fire melted the circuits.
Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Not so loud.
Okay, not very loud, but that unfortunately I don't think I can change it. As long as you hear something, that's important.
It was pitch black. No exits were marked. They were hidden behind thick black curtains. Most were locked. Those in the upper balcony were horrified to discover that during the show, the ushers had locked them in to prevent their sneaking down to better seats. It was a perfect death trap. Firefighters put out the blaze in less than 20 minutes. But when they panned their flashlights around the dark theater, they were sickened by what they saw. At each locked exit was a pyramid of bodies, 10, 12 feet high. In their zeal to open the show in time for the holidays, producers had violated every fire code imaginable.
Okay, that's good enough. So we have this fire in 1903. We can have an intuitive explanation for this. Why did all these people die? Can somebody make a suggestion? See.
Was it because they panicked and crowded at the exits?
Okay. All right. They panicked and they crowded at the exits that were locked. Okay, good. All right. So, but now I want you to think of another event and see if we can come up with an explanation that is common to both events. So this is a little more recent, 1979. It was a rock concert by, I think it was The Who. It's a heavy metal group in Cincinnati where people were lining up to go into the stadium. These were the days of rock concerts at the stadium. And as people did not have assigned, there were not even seats, I think, maybe some were seats. They could just go in and be anywhere. So obviously people were trying to get in as close to the stage, and 11 of them, of these fans, died in the process. So my question to you is, can we come up with an explanation that will fit both of these disasters? So why did people die? In the way that it would explain the crowd behavior both in 1 and 2. Any suggestions, guys?
Not panic.
Not panic.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Uh-huh. Okay. I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea of adrenaline, but let's push it. Jasmine, was it you? Let's push that.
Yeah, it was.
Good. Let's push it a little more. So what does the adrenaline do? Why do we get adrenaline in our bodies and our system?
Like when scared or excited, like, and we're so focused on everything, our heart rate and everything goes up because we're focused on such a big situation. So at a rock concert, you saying they didn't have seats, they were probably also excited, fighting to go stand in front of the stage.
Right.
And then with the fire, people are like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So they bug out trying to be the first one standing at the door.
Perfect. This actually is very good. Your words are slightly different from what, I would say.
The way I would explain it, I'm sorry.
No, your explanation is actually perfect. It's just in a different sort of words.
Vocabulary.
Vocabulary, just the way of you putting it. Yeah, and the idea is that, doesn't matter, is that it's the perceived value of the award. All right, so in the fire, the perceived award is staying alive, right? Surviving. And in 2, it's getting a better view, better seats, better standing. So you want that award. You want to live or you want to enjoy your show. So 2 quite similar, quite different events could have the same explanation, right? And that's where intuition is not going to help us. It's thinking about profound causes of human behavior. In this case, it's a crowd behavior. Now, these are the 5 biases that are well known in psychological research that can be a problem when we use intuitive explanations. So I'm just listing them now, and let's talk about each of them separately. So we have something that is very human. We love good stories. And encourage you to think about classes that you have taken. Were you in a class where your instructor was a good storyteller? Then it probably made the class better for you because you could sort of follow the story and enjoy it more. We also have our memory to thank us for our intuitions sometimes, because as the moment we think of an event, we think about something that happened to us intuitively, and that is known as the availability heuristic. Heuristic is something that we use in a quick and dirty kind of decision, like a rule of thumb. If we start thinking more deeply, we can come up with a better explanation, but we are cognitive misers. We don't like thinking hard. We also have problems with something that we can't see. We don't see it, we don't think about it. And the two last ones have to do with just our predilections of liking some things and thinking that we're good at everything. We cannot be biased. So let's start with a good story. So my favorite example here is a weight loss industry in this country. You guys think about it for a second. Has anybody, you or a member of your family, ever tried to lose weight?
Yo, I try. I'm sorry, Miss Sigarina. I try, man.
How many
Sometimes I
times?
stick my head to it. No, I'm not gonna lie. This past year, I lost about like 15, 20 pounds. But once it comes to the point where you have to watch or you have to eat, you have to be so dedicated to it to do it. And that is the hard part. Because
Okay.
I don't know, man. It's just hard.
Oh, it is hard, right? So it's a big industry. That's what I want to say. I'm not asking everybody else to think about it, but maybe let's see. Can we do this a little poll? You guys, you have those buttons at the bottom in the participants section. You have the green button, that's yes, and you have the red button, that's no. Just think about yourself. Many of you are still quite young. Jasmine told us that she tried. If you have tried a weight loss program or a diet, click on the yes button. And if you haven't, click on the no button. This is anonymous. Okay, oh good, all right. We have 18 people, well, minus me, 17. Let's get the numbers to 17. Okay, so now we have 4 yes and 5 no. Okay, pretty much even. Okay, 6 no, 5 yes. A couple more people join us. All right. Oh, somehow yes keeps changing from yes to no. Okay. So I have 10 people who voted and 6 voted no and 4 voted yes, which means, yeah, a lot of people are doing, trying dieting and trying to lose weight. Now, interestingly, that has been around for many years. Okay, I see. Okay, that's fine. If you don't have access to the buttons, don't worry about it. From 2001, that's an interesting statistic that I found, about 80% of ads for weight loss products, that is diets, books, supplements, you name it, featured a testimonial. That is, a particular person says, look at me, I've done this, and now look at me now. It's like before and now pictures, stories, and you start reading it and you become so engaged with the story that you like it. All right. So here is an interesting example of Weight Watchers. I assume you guys know what the Weight Watchers. I think it's called now WW or something like that. They've changed the name. So they had a story about the woman who lost, check this out, 200 pounds after being in the program for 2 years. Okay. So here is my hint. What about the control test? Who can tell us what this controlled test would be? if we want to actually test the Weight Watchers claim.
Can it be that a woman gained weight? Like one would be losing weight and the other one would be gaining weight?
Uh-huh. But here I'm giving you an example of one particular person. Knowing that one person is not going to be good enough, what do we need to do to have a control test? How can we control whether the Weight Watchers diet actually works?
Increase the maybe the amount of participants
Yes,
through Weight
right.
Watchers.
Yeah, excellent. So we would take anybody who wants to participate in the study, right? Let's say we can pay them and say, you're gonna, so let's measure your current weight, whatever that is, and you will try, hopefully, to stay in the program for 2 years, right? So if this particular testimonial is something worth it, and we don't know, maybe she was 600 pounds, so she lost 33% of her weight. So we will have to adjust for different weights. So what we expect to see at the end, if the diet works, right? That our participants, not one now, but whoever many who signed up, they should be losing about a third of their weight, if what this woman tells us is true. So now I'm going to switch back to pounds. When this study was actually done, and believe it or not, it was actually paid by Weight Watchers. Dumb, da-dum. What was the average weight loss after 2 years of people who stayed in the program? In pounds. Just type in the chat. All right. Seaver says 50. Okay. Go ahead, people. Guess. Jasmine says 30. Eileen 40. Well, you guys are thinking, Louis says 25. Norma says 40. You guys are thinking good thoughts about Weight Watchers. In fact, the average loss after 2 years, people who were followed by the Weight Watchers researchers, was 6 pounds. 6! It costs a lot to be on this program. So are these people wasting their money? Yes, they are. Or they have in this case. Giving us the idea, the story that the woman gave to everybody, it was true, but it was one little story. And this is what we call an anecdote. And anecdotes are not data. We just like them. That's in our human psychology. Okay, availability. Let's do that. Again, use the chat, guys. Let's answer the first question. What are the leading causes of death in the US? It can be 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you would like to guess. Okay, Luz says heart disease. Jasmine says violence. Unhealthy, okay. Romaine says cancer. Smoking, okay. So lung cancer would be obviously a heart attack. Okay, good. How about car accidents? How about terrorist attacks? Is that a major cause of death in the US? OD, okay. strokes. Good. Okay, the next question is, and I'll show you the numbers in a second. The next question is, what do you think causes more death, homicide or suicide? Just type in one word that you think is. So homicide, homicide, suicide, homicide, suicide. Okay. We are divided. So let's have a look. Too much hate, homicide, suicide. Okay, you guys are kind of split in between. So we have now a very interesting site called A World in Data. So let me get my color again. Can we? Yes. So here is people who said heart attacks, that's cardiovascular diseases, and strokes were absolutely correct. So 900,000 people in the US died in 2017. These are the data from 2017, died of stroke and heart attacks. The next leading cause was cancers. Again, a couple of you said that. Note that our cause number 3 in this country is dementia. That is Alzheimer's and semantic dementia and other types of dementias, of which we have a few. That's almost 250,000 people. All right. Now I asked you about terrorism. As you can see, in 2017, only 95 people died of terrorism. And now, question number 2. Here is our suicide numbers, almost 50,000 people. And here is our homicide rate. Look at that, only 20,000. So suicide actually is a much, much more common cause of deaths in the US than homicide. And you can see other interesting things, that you have more chances of dying from fire or in the fire than from drowning. Okay, stop that. Interesting, because I was just looking at the data, that this is something that's important for us now. These are the 3 countries that have the highest rates of corona. These actually are the data right here at the end, are the data from today. That's September 15th. And here we are at February 22nd. Here's the scale. So you can see that this is the United States. There was a peak relatively early, mid-April. Then it became sort of flat. Then it went up. That's around July 20th. Now it steadily goes down. Here's a little bit of an uptick. But look at India. That's the other. So India did not have anything for the longest time. It kept in parallel with the United States. Somewhere around mid-August, it shot. And we know for the virus to really be conquered, we need to have 0 cases. And this is cases per day. And you can see Russia had a little bump and sort of now quite stable. Okay, so if you're interested, this site called Our World in Data has tons and tons of things for everything, every imaginable topic, and it's completely free. So you can look up and do things. Okay, let's finish a couple of these guys, and then we will move on, and then we'll have a break. So the third bias that I mentioned in the beginning has to do with things that we don't see. So again, going back to our campers example, or bloodletting, or breast cancer surgeries, it's when we see something, we expect it to happen, and we don't think, so we're thinking about 1 cell out of 4. We are not thinking about the other 3. And we often get duped sort of by thinking that way only. I have an example. which we'll do, I guess, after the break. So it's 5:37. Let's have a break until 5:45. I'm here, so if anybody wants to ask a question or chat, let's do that. Otherwise, we are in break until 5:45 p.m. Have some research that would support it. So hopefully in that book that you will read, your author will be actually sending you to check sources, and you may want to have a look at some of them. I'm not saying just go through everything that he cites, but you see if there is a body of research, and whether this body of research is probabilistic. That is, some of it goes with the idea that it's in our genes, so we would continue to live with the burden of experience of our ancestors, and others will say perhaps that the evidence is inconclusive. And that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the science. And anything has to do with mental health is really, a lot of that is very, very subjective. So it's very hard to do a scientific testing of that. Anyway, good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's get back to where we were. All right, let's try a little demonstration with you guys. So we're not very good at gathering evidence. And usually when we ask people to, let's say we're using scientific terms, to test a hypothesis, they're not very good at that, because what they're looking for is something that will support their expectations, whether they're coming from experience or intuition, and then they'll sort of disregard everything else. So I'm going to show you some instructions. Make sure you understand. All right. Oops, it's not this. It's this. Okay. It's called Waison's 4-card test. So I'm going to show you on the next screen 4 cards, index cards, right? They all have a letter from the alphabet on one side and the number on the other. Now I'm asking you to test a hypothesis that's in blue. If a card has a vowel, and the vowels are A, O, U, E, I, Y, it has an even number on the other side. And obviously you know what the even numbers are, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, I'm asking you in this process to flip as many cards as you wish. However, you should flip as few cards as possible to test the hypothesis. No more, no less. Obviously, if you flip all 4, then there's not much that we can say, because you will be flipping them all. So the idea is, how many, if not 4, do you need to flip to test the hypothesis that if a card has a vowel on one side, it has an even number on the other side. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. And in the chat, you should write to me, to all of us, which cards you think, or which card you think needs to be flipped. Okay. All right. Jeremiah, you have 3 carrots. Just type in the the vowels and the numbers. Okay, Victoria says A is 6. Jeremiah, okay, A and 6, I see. A and 6, very good, very good. All right, A and 6. Okay, so let's talk about flipping A. Why do we need to do that? Can somebody unmute yourself?
Because it's a vowel.
It's a vowel, so to confirm the hypothesis, what do we need to find on the other side?
An even number.
Right, and if we don't find an even number, then the hypothesis is disconfirmed. Okay, good. That's an easy question. Now, what about 6? Many of you said 6. Why do we want to test 6? Again, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and telling us. So Louis says to find a vowel, and Norma says to find a vowel. So let's say we flip a 6 and we find B there. A B is a consonant, right? It will disconfirm our hypothesis. And if we find an A there, right, then we're good. What about J and S? Do we need to flip any of those? So let's say J has 3 on the other side. That's not going to do anything to our hypothesis, so we don't care. The same about 7. If 7 has a vowel or a consonant, doesn't matter because 7 is not an even number. So you guys are absolutely right that you need to flip these 2 cards. Now, the question to you is, of course, this is a real experiment that was conducted. How many people said that you should flip A and 6 in terms of percentages of participants?
Can we ask how many participants there were, or
no? How many of the participants flipped 2 cards, A and 6, or whatever the. So Rita says 80. You okay? You Sivers, you say 80 as well. So you think people are good at this? Now I'm telling you that people are really, really bad. They suck. What was the actual percentage of people who flipped 2 cards? Even less, even fewer than that, Seaver, 10%. So 90% of the people we don't care about the other 2. 90% of the people only flipped the A card. They only wanted to make sure that the hypothesis is confirmed. They did not do anything about the hypothesis. Probably that could be disconfirmed, for which you need to flip 6. So that's interesting. In real life, people don't do that. All right, I'm just gonna go to a few slides further on because we don't need a lot of explanation. Oops. Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. All right, here we go. Start. Okay. Oh, I didn't do it. That's all right. We're gonna go through the explanation. We don't need that. Okay, our final bias with respect to the intuition is about us thinking that we're not biased. And that even has a name in research. It's known as the bias blind spot. That is, we think that we're good, and we believe that we're not going to be biased like every other people are. So unfortunately, it doesn't work this way. Even after we train people to be unbiased, and now there is tons and tons of training. I don't know about you guys as students. We as faculty have to do like 6 different trainings a year on various things, including the unbiased treatment of staff and stuff like that. And it doesn't help. We continue to be biased, and we continue to think that we are not biased, if it makes sense to you. So training helps a little bit, but not enough. In many situations, we just continue to live with these biases, because being unbiased requires a lot of cognitive work, and that's hard. Finally, the third piece in that box to the left from the empirical research, alternative explanations or alternative sources of the ideas. The third one is the authority. So here, obviously, we can think of many different types of authorities. It could be media, if you watch the box, or if you have a particular site you like on the internet. Maybe you're listening to some government officials. Do you listen to Dr. Fauci from CDC about what can be done with coronavirus? Do you consider him an authority? We also have public and religious figures. Is anybody among you guys who's Catholic, Roman Catholic? Okay, good. Anybody else? Eileen says that she is Catholic. Eileen, so it's a question to you. Who is the main authority for Catholics uh, in the world? Yes, even non-Catholics know it's the Pope, Francis I. And he is, according to the Catholic um, uh, doctrine, is the representative of God on this earth. So everything that the Pope says is true by definition. That's how Catholic faith developed. And that's interesting. So, of course, we don't always know, or we don't always, what we consider to be an authority doesn't have to be an authority to our neighbor or even a member of our family. I think the textbook gives you this example of vaccination. This is not a coronavirus vaccination, that's childhood vaccination. And here is somebody who believes that vaccination should be postponed for children until they are a little older, because one of the possible causes of autism, in her thinking, is early vaccination. So she's not saying not to vaccinate children. She's saying, let's postpone it until the children are a little older, maybe, school age. And here is a physician, Offit, who is well known, and with his research on the effects of vaccination on children and its relationship to autism. We know that what was originally thought as a possible cause of autism, that is vaccines, is not true. In fact, the British pediatrician who came up with this idea had a tiny little sample with lots of confounds, and therefore his study has been retracted. That is, it's not something that we believe nowadays, but originally it made a lot of sort of splash in the news when vaccination was linked to autism. Obviously, you don't want that to happen to your child, so you watch this. But again, who are the authorities to who? That's an interesting question. Presumably, somebody who has credentials of being a medical doctor and being trained, having an MD, or maybe MD or PhD, having an advanced degree and advanced training, would be more of an authority than just a public person. So these are the limitations, right? not necessarily that these people actually know what they're talking about. Again, the internet is full with statements from people who are self-proclaimed gurus, but really they don't have the right credentials, and they themselves can be biased like any other human being. So the only way to get around is to actually be a scientific reasoner, not to be an intuitive thinker. We should not base our actions and our conclusions on just our intuitions. We have to go through the motions of doing research, because we are in the research methods class, to have comparison groups, to get rid of confounds, to make sure that we are looking at all the data, that we're not doing present or availability thinking. So here, coming back to our flow chart, we will reject experience, intuition, and authority as possible sources for our ideas, which then will become what? What's going to be in the box underneath idea? Can anybody guess? What's going to be in the box underneath idea?
It might be too early. I want to say theory. You know, I really want to say like something along the lines of hypothesis or theory, and then I'm like, which one comes first? And I'm thinking.
Yeah, you just said it.
Okay.
Hypothesis, of course. All of that, library research, empirical research, and past research, all of that is driven by theory. But once you have an idea, let's say, vaccination and autism, that's an idea, right? Because you're not connecting these things in any meaningful way. Now you say, I'm going to take these two, and they are variables, and I'll connect them in a certain way, and I will have a hypothesis. And the hypothesis will be a restatement of the idea with a verb in it. So we will say, vaccination causes autism. And that's a hypothesis that we can test. And there could be many theories, right? So it could be many hypotheses. Maybe it's one of the Jeremiah's thoughts that it's genetic, that once you have an autistic member in the family, a sibling, or maybe even an older generation, now we have lots of adults who are autistic. Then it runs in the family. So therefore you could say that autism is caused by genes. That's another hypothesis, right? So what goes here is hypothesis, and we will continue doing that in our chapter 3, which is going to be all about hypotheses. So how do we do that? That's what your assignment 2. Assignment 1 is more of a review of the literature, but assignment 2 will actually require you to be engaged in the research process, right? So we're going to go through a cycle that is familiar to you, I hope, from chapter 1. We have to observe a phenomenon. So I asked you last time to type in your ideas. What is it that you find interesting or exciting, or your pet peeves, or whatever else you might want to consider? And it has to be observable. That is, it has to be some kind of behavior, some kind of a reflection of the mental life that we have. Again, I can use the vaccination and autism as an example, but you can think of others as well, right? And then we'll try, so we see autistic children, right? We see autistic adults, because children grow into adults, and under most circumstances, unfortunately, they don't grow out of it. So they continue to be autistic. So what is the tentative explanation? Well, I offered you two. I said it could be the vaccination at childhood. Most of the vaccines actually are administered before the age of 2. There are a few boosters that come later. Or it may be genes. Or one could say it is the diet. Maybe there is something in the diet of these children that causes autism. I mean, these are all possible tentative explanations, right? Then we will continue to either observe. Obviously, we can't induce autism experimentally. That's unethical. So we'll continue to observe, see other cases. We can maybe go to a society where there is no or very little vaccination and see what happens. Do they have autistic children? Right? And then we continue to refine our explanations as we get more data. We go into the cycle, right? And that's what chapter 1 showed you in the theory data cycle. So how do we observe a phenomenon? Again, like I said, it could be a behavior that catches your attention. A lot of you mentioned psychopathology, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety as something that you might want to study, and I suggested that you should look at things that are much more observable and easier to study than psychopathology. Then you will formulate your hypothesis. Again, we can think of the hypothesis that we used for the campers example, that is, reduced sugar will result in calmer behavior in our children. So that's a hypothesis. Okay. And now comes something that we will continue to talk about a lot that has to do with variables. So in every claim that we will work with for chapter 3, that's coming our way next week, and for your assignment 1 and for your assignment 2, you will have to think about variables. And we will always try to go only with 2 variables, no more than that. Of course, we can have 3, we can have 4. The more is not the merrier. The more is the more difficult. And then we can have things that don't change, and they're called constants. We don't really care about constants, except that we want to keep them constant. So if we are looking at campers, right, we don't know what the rest of the environment was. You know, maybe something else has changed that could have brought the results. Maybe they have a new swimming instructor and they're now swimming and they just get tired, so they're less energetic or something like that. But we want to keep all of that constant, because otherwise it will become a variable too, and it will become a confounding variable, which we don't want. So I urge you now to start thinking about your assignment 1 for both your media piece and the original research article with the variables in mind. The variables will have to be in your title. So what is one variable, the one that will affect the behavior, and what is the other variable, the behavior itself? And that's the critical step in identifying the design of any study. So there has to be a relationship, and that gives us the hypothesis. So the hypothesis is the statement that describes this relationship between the variables of interest. Again, I will continue to say 2, but it could be more than 2. It's just that we don't want to go that deep into the woods now because it's going to be too difficult. And therefore, we're trying to observe whether the value of one variable will affect the value of the other variable. So if you give a child a shot of measles, will the child develop autism? Yes or no? So we are having the measles shot versus no measles shot, developing autism, not developing autism. Okay, so these are the values of the 2 variables. So for each of the topics that you're thinking about, you have to think about these variables. And then, of course, we will continue to isolate more. So one of the examples that I used in the actual very first chapter, well, yeah, chapter 1 in the beginning of the course was Harlow's theory of attachment, where he experimented with baby monkeys. And what he showed was that baby monkeys preferred the fuzzy, warm mother, which of course wasn't the real mother, it was the contraption that they created in the cage. And the baby monkeys did not care about the wired, cold mothers, although they had the bottle with food in them. But that is the first cycle. And the next cycle, the next question, and the next cycle of experimentation could be, well, when we say baby monkeys, do we mean newborn monkeys, like a few days old? What will happen if we do it later, maybe a week after they are born? So this is known as the critical period hypothesis. Do you need to form your attachments really early on? Because otherwise it's going to be impossible. So now we can continue the experimentation with the baby monkeys by having a group of monkeys that are newborn and a group of monkeys that are 1 week old or something like that. And we can continue to develop the relationship between one variable, that is the type of mother, and the other variable that is forming the attachment. Again, take any example and try to think about this example in terms of variables. And then you'll continue to do more observations, and you will continue to develop new hypotheses. That's why psychology is so exciting, but simultaneously it's very frustrating because there is never an end to your studies, to your experiments. You just go on and on and on, and it's wonderful, but it's very tiring. One would want to have some answers, as in physics or chemistry. Okay, so new evidence, new hypothesis, another cycle of evidence, another refinement of the hypothesis, and that's sort of why psychological science is so cyclical. And if your research does not produce the results that confirm with your hypothesis, well, you have to change it. Maybe you even have to abandon it. And researchers have to have courage to do so and say, well, this is what I suggested, and that's how I have to change it now. That's why this is what we call a scientific method, and you have to demonstrate that in this course that you are learning about the scientific method, and you can do psychological research using the scientific method, even if it's clinical stuff, psychopathology. All right, our last piece for today is how do we deal with the research of which we have tons and tons of? How do we consult scientific sources, and what are these scientific sources? How do we find them? How do we read about research that is not even teaching you how to read a research article, because you'll have to do it on your own. We don't have enough time in the class, even with the 4 hours. So think about our main source, and that's why your assignment number 1 is based on this. You actually have to find an empirical research article and read it. And that is not so easy. If you haven't done it before, welcome to the jungle. If you have done it before, good. You know what to look for. Let me reiterate it again in terms of assignment number 1, that your research article should be short. 6 to 8 pages, tops 10 if you are really a strong student. It should come with a method that you understand, or at least you can understand as you read it. So anything that comes from neuroscience is lovely, it's exciting, but you won't be able to really deal with it unless you are working in a neuroscientific lab and you have been exposed to this kind of literature. avoid medical journals. They are wonderful, but again, not something that a consumer of psychological research can deal with. Sometimes we have special articles called review articles. They're meta-analyses. So what they do, they pull the data from different studies and statistically analyze them looking for effect size. We don't want that. We want an actual empirical article that has introduction, method, results, discussion, that kind of stuff. So I'm asking you for this Thursday, if you can, to read a pair of articles. They're posted for you on the Blackboard in two places. One is the research article, one is the media piece about whether if you put children in the situation when they don't use screens, that is cell phones or tablets or computers for a few days, whether this will improve their emotional well-being and social interactions. Now, of course, when the research team published this article, media just had a feast. They all went about saying, oh my God, look at what it does. Only 5 days in the camp. Look at kids, they're now so much better. So that was the hype that was created by the original research article. So for us and for you guys to understand what assignment 1 is all about, we need to go through this exercise. So I'm asking you to, I guess I should see if I can stop and go to the Blackboard. Give me a second and then we'll be done for today. Assignment 1. Again. Okay, so there it is. So let me share it with you. Share. All right. If you don't see the Blackboard, say something. If you do, all right. So here I am in assignment 1 on the left, right? And down at the bottom, you have assignment 1 for in-class discussion. So I'm asking you to download these 2 articles. Let's see if they open up. One is the Popular Press article by Time Magazine. And the other one is the actual article by Alls and colleagues. This is about screen time in children and emotions. Read the 2 because we don't have time for you guys to read them in class. And please convey this message to your classmates because we'll first discuss it together and then I'll have to probably use the breakout rooms for you to go through this. If you understand how this pair works, you'll be well prepared to think about your assignment 1. You still are not prepared to write it, but we still have 2 weeks to do that. We'll continue working on that. Okay, finally, one little thing is to, let's see, stop sharing, is to talk for 1 minute about the potential topics and we'll be done for today. So here's the idea. All right, skip that. How do we get about getting this idea? Remember I said web news sites? You guys all read internet? I'm just showing you a couple of examples of what one could find. If you know what the ginkgo biloba is, it's a tree and you can create an extract from it that supposedly enhances memory. So what does media say about ginkgo biloba's capability to enhance memory? And what does research say? Now think about other things that can enhance cognition. We all want to do well in our classes. Does caffeine work? What does science say about it? What does media say about it? What about nicotine? Smoking, that's a stimulant too. How about energy drinks? Red Bull, anybody? Perhaps Adderall, if you know somebody who has ADHD and you borrowed pills from that person. So these are just a couple of ideas. At this point, guys, we are done today. If you have any questions, stay with me for a few more minutes. Otherwise, the class is over and I'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Happy Tuesday. See you Thursday.
happy Wednesday, I would say.
Oh,
Right.
I'm like, wait, today's Wednesday? Today's
No,
Tuesday.
today's Tuesday, but the happy Wednesday is tomorrow.
Happy Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Professor,
Uh-huh.
for the summary for today, can we
Mm-hmm.
can we just write about like research versus personal experience, or do we have to combine personal experience, intuition?
No, you could write about research versus personal experience. Just remember, Jeremiah, that your thread, your entry should be at least 200 words, and you should have some links to where this information is coming from. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Otherwise, you're welcome. See
Have a
you
good rest of your
Thursday.
day.
You too. Bye.
Hi,
Hey,
Professor.
Sever. Yes.
Hi. I may have posted a response to the this Time Magazine media article and the research article to another week. Would you mind if I just kind of brought it over to the proper week?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah. You have time until Monday night, Sever, to move everything to. I'm still trying to figure out how I can have it all in a meaningful way, and the only way I can do it is by limiting the work per week. And I haven't done it in the beginning. That's why you were able to go ahead and do stuff.
I think I got like a little bit ahead because I started realizing my mistake. I would go to the proper week, but then I would read the homework for the upcoming week because towards the end of certain weeks you could see homework. You're in week 3, but you see homework for week 4. So I know exactly what went wrong. But okay, understood.
Good. So just move it from the previous week to this one, and you will be fine.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much for today. Thank you.
See you on Thursday.
See you later. Okay. Bye.
All right. Everybody else? Anybody else who has any questions? Okay. I'll see you guys on Thursday then. Yes, Thursday.